Good afternoon and welcome to this panel discussion on economics of hacks and breaches. To cover this panel discussion, we have very good diverse speakers here. Manish, who is the CISO of Airtel India. So I'll invite Manish to come over to the stage. Then Suchit, who is heading security operations at a Grab. Grab is a taxi aggregator in South Asian economy. So Suchit, please join on the stage. Then we have Bhishma, who works with the Marsh. Marsh is an insurance broker, and he looks at the cyber insurance and database insurance particular domain. So please welcome him to part of this session. So the topic is economics of hacks and breaches, and who gains and who wins out of this one. And probably we like to cover from the diverse view. And we have somebody from the telecom industry, which is very heavily regulated industry. And the economics of the security and especially the breaches plays very important role there, and probably very different dimensions that do play into that heavily regulated industry. We probably would have some banking industry presence as well. If he joins the panel, we'll welcome you on this panel. Deepak from the Axis Bank probably will be joining us in this panel. Somebody who is managing the new innovation led by the digitization that we see. So Grab is one of the leading taxi aggregator application in the South Asia. And from the startup economy side, how exactly the economics of the breaches plays a role, and what exactly it goes in terms of managing those breaches, and probably looking at all of those dimensions around the breaches, we'll be covering that. And then all of those things, now cyber insurance is coming as a very important tools and instrument for organizations to probably manage their risk. So we'll try to cover that from the risk insurance side. So to start with Manish, from the telecom industry, which is a heavily regulated with respect to the way the security needs to be managed in the procedural part, and as well as the way the telecom sector organization should be responding to the breaches. I think there are a lot of heavy regulations which telecom sector try to regulate the telecom industries all across globe. So Manish, just initial brief remark from you, but we like to confine our discussion around the economics part of the discussion.
Sure, Vinayak, thanks. I'll try my level best.
Yeah.
I'm a technology guy. Finance is something that I always ran away from.
Yeah.
Barely managed to do my own personal finance. But anyway, here it goes. You're absolutely right. Telecom industry is, along with the banking industry in India, these are two most regulated industries. Banking is in the news for all the wrong reasons. As far as telecom goes, let's also appreciate and understand that the telecom industry is the backbone for communications of the country. So, and I come from a defense services background. If the communications were to break down, it can have an absolutely horrendous impact on the ability of any country to actually do its basic governance, even impact day-to-day lives. So there is a lot of responsibility, and I'm sure since we are all from the same community, more or less, the Estonia attack a couple of years ago, and we'll not delve into how and who did it, but the fact is it brought the country down to its knees, because it was largely it was a very the adoption of IT was at a very, very high level, with perhaps security controls or security not really given a too much thought process, not good enough, and we could see what it could do to a country. So we can imagine if something on those similar lines could happen here in our country. Now, regulations aside, we had this morning conversation pre-lunch, which was around regulatory, guidelines, rules, and so on and so forth, and there was a debate around whether it is good or bad. I think for any industry in the critical information infrastructure, having a set of guiding principles and regulations are extremely important. They must be well thought out, and that's where the government's governance quality really comes out, because it has a direct impact not only on security but on the cost of governance and cost of security as well.
So the ramification of the breach that happen in a critical sector like telecom
Yeah.
is just significantly higher. It's not only limited to that organization.
Yeah.
It also probably have ramification to the sectoral and national level as well. So the cost equation there will be significantly different than any of those B2C kind of environment company. So can you just throw some light on that part?
So you must understand that how a typical telecom sector is at a very high level, at let's say 90,000 feet level, how it would be. You would have a very significant infrastructure, which would be referred to as the network. Now, the network for IT guys, you'll think that, network as a network. No. So we are referring to the telecom part of the infrastructure. And then there would be a significant part, which is the IT part, which is core IT engineering, where most of your applications are hosted and so on and so forth. And most of the nodes, the switching devices, etc., are on the other side. And what we have to really understand is that with the advent of 4G and now with 5G around the corner, we have been experiencing this. I'm just simply bringing this term to fore. We have been experiencing convergence. We are seeing a convergence towards IP-based technology. So you had, data riding over voice, and now you have voice riding over data. And hence, as you move towards 5G, this delineation or this separation become even, will become absolutely undifferentiable. So as far as the cost is concerned, I think going forward, you just simply need to figure out, and I'm not going to ask or expect people to give, come up with embarrassing this thing, but ask yourself, in your organization, where the IT component and most of the data and all the data today resides in the IT part, practically all of us have suffered have suffered outages, have suffered incidents. Let's call them incidents. It could be on account of anything, and it has a cost to it, because when your operations were to come down, particularly when you're in the business of running a business, there is a financial impact, right? And why should it be any different for a
So
telecom?
this cost is a fine that you pay to the regulator is one cost. The investment you need to make to close those loopholes is another part, or probably compensation to the customer or client. What are those parameters on those factors basically?
No. So I don't want to get into the weeds, because as a regulated environment, the role and responsibility from a service provider to a customer and the government, it's a triad, is very clearly defined.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the example of Europe, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we are in a global environment.
Yeah.
Folks, we are in a global environment. And India has the potential. There are a lot of companies in India which have a global footprint, including Airtel, to which I belong. So we now have this new rule in Europe that is coming, which is the GDPR. I'm sure everybody is, I hope you all are, anybody who's got a global footprint are doing your own GDPR assessment against the GDPR guidelines, because there is a very heavy penalty of something like 4% of your global revenue in case you were to be in breach of GDPR guidelines. And this is coming into effect on, if I'm not mistaken, 24th of May, third week of
18th of May.
18th of May, sorry. Thanks for correcting me. Yeah. So issues around data privacy, issues around cybersecurity are extremely important. Having said so, I think the first fundamental rule that all of us, when we get into this particular field of IT, is that there is nothing called 100% security.
Yeah.
The question is, have you done due diligence in protecting your IT infrastructure? Have you done a high quality risk assessment in defining what are the risks and what is your strategy for controlling or mitigating those? Now, this costs money.
Yeah.
This costs money.
So due diligence is definitely the investment to deter probably the breach not to happen. So that's a definitely important cost.
And investment in all the four pillars: protect, detect, respond, and recover.
So that's one of the. But I would like to just to add to this discussion. So there is a IBM study on a cost of breach, and it has a little bit come down as it compared to last year. So cost of one bridge in a regulated environment in case of the US or Europe, it's said to be like $141 per bridge. So that's the cost. And it has been said like last year, the total average size of the record. So I'm talking about cost of per record. It's cost of not breach per record. So average size of the record that got breached last year, I'm talking about this from the privacy side, is around 28,000 records was breached last year on average. And you multiply by that 141, that's a significantly cost, which probably organizations are exposed to. But against this, we heard the story of the telecom, but now somebody who is innovating, taking risks probably, and probably crossing some of those boundaries, who is probably taking those kind of innovative steps to bring those kind of benefits of digitization. A taxi aggregation application of a Grab, who Suchit is here to and who is leading that operation. So how the equation plays, and any breach happens, so what scare basically it brings to you, and then what kind of cost basically that you think that associated with a breach?
Sure.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So, yeah, it's a very interesting question. And for us, Grab as a company, like you rightly said, we are a startup. We are just used to taking risk. Security is, from a board perspective, is another risk, right? And from a leadership standpoint, the bare minimum bottom line is we don't want to be in the news for the wrong reasons, right? So a breach is definitely the wrong reason for being in the news, right? And when we look at the overall threat and the actors here, right? We have our customers, of course. We have ourselves as a company. We have the hackers who are also economically incentivized, and then obviously the regulators, right? That we have to answer to. Each has its own economics at play here, right? Hackers are we participate in this bug bounty program. They're finding bugs in our products and our services, trying to break in and get money for that.
Yeah.
So it could pay out from anywhere from a few $100
Yeah.
to tens of thousands of dollars, right? So that's, but if that, in the case of Uber, if you look at what happened, that could blow up to a significant amount
Yeah.
if somebody's were to hold you hostage,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah.
So for us, that is a scary moment. We don't want to be in that position where we are compromised and our customer data is at risk, and we are having to pay a ransom to release that information, right? So that definitely is top of mind for us. Regulators keep, obviously, is always a top of mind for us, right? And especially with our business expanding beyond ride-hailing into payments. So financial institution, we're almost going to be like a bank in the long term. So that also has serious implications for us. So we are trying to, from a risk standpoint, we are much more conservative in our payments business compared to our ride-hailing business, which is a newly formed industry where regulations are not clearly defined today. And so within our organization also, we have a different mindset when we look at our payments business and then we look at ride-hailing business. You don't want to put your ride-hailing business under that much stress that is needed compared to the payments business from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah,
right?
but then, so the Manish talked about the privacy. So the discussion is definitely security is very important play when you discuss about the breach. But now privacy is bringing another angle because now governments are fixing your liabilities for the privacy breaches.
Yeah.
And that's significant liability, 4% of your global revenue is government talking about. And probably we all are catching. Singapore is probably catching up GDPR. Indian government has published a paper about larger data protection regulation, which also talks about this kind of liabilities of the organization. So while the quantum and complexity of data that we have been processing because of the digitization that we have been going for, digital footprint that is increased, is significantly rising one hand. On the other hand, one particular breach, specifics becomes important, and there is a cost associated with one breach basically. So how this equation plays in the entire planning exercise that do happen, budget making exercise that do happen. So is it like a proactive investment that culls out of any kind of this breach that get revealed, so that investment goes there, or there could be other investments that comes into picture? For example, buying an insurance policy, and we'll come to Bishma for that one. But from the user industry side, how do you think that entire planning exercise or entire thinking in terms of investment for the not to be in the part of the known for these kind of breaches? So how this discussion happens in the company?
Right. So the way we think about it, whether you compromise one record, you compromise a million records, it's the same for us, right? It is a compromise at the end of the day, right? The magnitude might vary, and in terms of the direct cost, there will be a variation, right? You could pay people money for credit monitoring. So if it's a million, multiply that by $20 or whatever that annual cost is, that would go up. If it's 100, much lesser. But the intangible is much more difficult, which is the PR, the
Yeah,
branding that we
yeah,
have, right?
yeah.
So for us, we really look at that more objectively, which is we don't want to be, like I said, we don't want to be in the news for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah.
So, and so we do the same amount of due diligence, whether it's a one record or a million record. We have to have the same baseline security for everything. And then for certain regulated industries, we even go above and beyond that because of just the nature of the business.
Yeah, and now my one next question is to both of you. So when breach happens, probably there is a more stringent regulation, more stringent liability, and it probably will be Manish will second me or probably counter that. Probably it's easy for larger organizations to comply with those kind of obligations and liabilities coming on them. But any of this revelation of breach brings those liabilities and requirement and probably makes lives of startup company like yours difficult. Is this a fair statement to say from both Manish and?
So, to say that large companies will find it easy to comply, I would say I don't entirely, and smaller companies will not. I don't entirely agree with that. I think that the current advent of technology and solutions which are available in the market are such that small companies can, leveraging technology, particularly in the services model, do a lot of stuff which they would not have been able to do any which ways till now. And I think the biggest thing that is there today is the is the coming of age of cloud-based technologies. So as of today, we talk about cloud technologies only for your production environment or a SaaS or a PaaS or whatever. But at the end of the day, we are also looking at now managed services, off-prem managed services in a very big way, where if your infrastructure is largely on the cloud, then your security can be largely on the cloud as well. And equally so, your endpoint security can also be managed through the cloud. The cost of communication is coming down. I think that's something that we should be proud of, whatever this thing. And so it's about leveraging technology. So large number of companies today would not be existing if it weren't for these disruptive technologies.
The question I'm raising, and Suchit,
No, but I just want to
yeah.
say this, that if I am handling customer information, right, very sensitive data, there are companies which are startups around medical solutions, they need sample data. Data is not necessarily always anonymized, right? They're handling for whatever, they're handling sensitive, they have sensitive data, they have PII, they have a lot, they're handling customer data. Being a startup is no excuse for not looking at privacy concerns of customers. And when they plan their entire strategy, they need to figure out what is the cheapest way to where they can manage security and risk compliance and mitigation, as well as keep the costs.
So I don't want to pitch with startup and existing company, but Suchit, I think, what do you think that this kind of obligation and cost associated with breach really makes life difficult for the startup companies?
By all means, it is hard, right? Essentially, we're not a profitable company today. We are raising funds to support our business. So when it comes to a decision, when it comes to finances, we have to make very tough choices, right? So we will not overinvest in something where we don't have a dire need to do that, unless somebody's really arm twisting us, right? In this case, the government is. So we will have to do something to that. But I think good point that he was trying to make, I think, is given the cloud and everything, like small companies are actually much more nimble in responding to security breaches, I would say. And I have worked at very large companies like Adobe and Salesforce, and I know how long it took for us to change systems after a breach.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
it would be much faster in a small startup company because you have less number of people, less number of systems, relatively speaking. You could turn things around much quickly. And then if you look at a large company, you could have an immediate, they are already publicly traded, their stock could go up or down. We're not publicly traded, so nothing happens on the floor from
Yeah,
the Wall
yeah,
Street
yeah,
for us,
yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah.
that way the liability is lower, I would
Yeah,
say, right?
yeah, because the reputational risk which established with associated with the established large companies will be significantly higher as compared to startup companies. But now there is also this session talks about ki somebody they do get benefit out of the breaches, and I would like to come to Bhishma, and that's what the new business which is probably flourishing and is possibility of flourishing as well is the insurance, cyber insurance or breach insurance that is happening. So one is the question is how insurance, cyber insurance as a business is growing, and what are those nuances associated with the breach that basically that you can throw some light on this particular discussion.
That's a technology failure.
Yeah.
So, I think we are following the right sequence here, when we talk about insurances, when everything fails, you come to insurance. So, I'm the last person to speak, and that's where it stands. So, I would like to take the answer in two parts. One is how cyber insurance is growing and what's the uptake on cyber insurance. We need to look at insurance in largely two ways. One, it's a overall part of your risk management process. So, what's the risk management process says is one, to avoid risk. That's the step one. Second is to mitigate risk. Now, when it comes to technological adoption, going digital, you can't avoid risk really. Everybody has to go digital. Everybody has to adopt technology. So, avoiding is completely out of picture. What you can do is you can mitigate the risk, and mitigating the risk will mean having better cybersecurity infrastructure, investing on cybersecurity, having best of firewalls, state-of-the-art infrastructure and all. But still, as Manish has raised, how many of us can, clearly say that we have not faced breaches. Companies like Equifax, companies like Uber have faced breaches. I'm sure they are US based. They have much more stringent laws and better infrastructure, but they have faced attacks. They have faced breaches. Now, the second part of insurance is, we never go and tell our clients that we are an alternate to your risk management or your cybersecurity assessment. This is not an alternate. We are complementing your cybersecurity infrastructure. We are complementing what you're doing in your cybersecurity side. So when everything fails, you still have a backstop. You have a contingent capital available with you. And this is what is cyber insurance all about. An insurance company is writing your risk basis the underwriting they have done on your cybersecurity infrastructure and providing you a contingent capital that, even after having best of infrastructure, if something goes wrong, we are there to protect you. Now that's something which I'm sure most of the corporates would like it. Again, taking the cue from Suchit, I would not say, so most of the companies today are in a startup zone. So even Airtel, it being a 25-year-old company, but if you talk to them, they're still coming up with a lot of new things. So they are still in a startup phase. And any other company, we have met Reliance, we have met Tata Communications, we have Tata Steel. Everybody is doing something new, and there is something which they call as that there is an incubator, there is an innovator in all of these firms. Now, to figure out the balance between how much to invest in cybersecurity and how much to invest in business is always a tough question.
Yeah, I think digitization innovation, definitely I want to cover that as a part of the possibility of breaches. But had any situation that comes when people say that rather than investing to secure, I'll better buy insurance?
So that, so we meet a lot of CISOs, so most of the time, the decision of buying a cyber insurance is taken at the CFO or CEO level. but it's the CISO whom we have to convince, because for them their security levels are the best, and to go and talk to them and tell them about vulnerabilities is a tough job. You don't want to really argue with a lawyer about a contract, so it's like that. But so that's what we do. I mean,
Sujit,
it's
I
not an
understand from CISO side. Your CISO would like to invest in security, but if you talk to your business, so do they really weigh the option between investing in security and investing into insurance? Like, does it happen like?
It's the same like being healthy, right? I mean, you don't. If you're unhealthy, your insurance will be high naturally, right? So you still you want to maintain a good lifestyle and be healthy, and then have it. Like he said, to his point, it is a complementary thing, right? We are never going to be in a place where we would say, okay, stop doing security, we'll just invest in insurance, and that's it, right? So that's not going to happen, right? But from my perspective, again, for a startup where if we have limited resources, limited dollars, I would rather use the dollars to invest in security and beef up our security rather than pay for insurance. Just nothing against anyone, but that's just my perspective. Right?
No, just to add to it, even an insurer who's taking on your risk would love to, hear that you are investing more and more in security rather than leaving it to an insurer to handle. Because it's like, taking an analogy, it's like buying a health insurance policy. See, if you have invested in your health and you are in best of health, a health insurer will give you a better premium. He will be ready to take your risk at a much high sum insured levels or indemnity levels. Similarly, in cyber insurance also, if an underwriter feels or insurer feels that your systems are best, one, you get better premiums. The cost definitely comes down. So that's economies.
Yeah, but now the question on so we had been managing all of those risks and probably the breaches as well, but because of digitization, we have two sectors here, transport and telecom sector, but each sector has been talking about digitization. They have been setting up innovation lab and looking at business innovation, and which probably is increasing digital footprint quite significantly. So do you see the possibility of more breaches because of the digitization and increasing digital footprint that in the future, Manish? And
Yeah, so I'd like to combine 2-3 things,
Yeah.
and hopefully it'll answer some questions which have arisen from this panel. So I think one of the reasons, I've worked very closely, Vinayak, as you know, with the banking sector, particularly when making the cybersecurity framework, which was released in 2016 for banks in India. So I work very closely with the banking sector, and not only is the telecom and the banking sector one of the most regulated, it's also, these are two sectors which are also the most heavily invested in technology. They're not only technology dependent, I'm talking about core technology for their business, but they're also heavily invested in IT security technology. And I have practically worked, I've interacted with practically every single bank in this country. I don't want to take names. More with the banking sector, less with the telecom. Telecom is where I am right now, right? Now, let me share with you a clear example of where organizations go wrong. How many organizations, if you look at your own environment, and in every sphere, every place that I've gone, I've tried to change this culture. Try doing this, believe me. Just figure out how much time we, who are security managers, spend firefighting. How much time do we actually spend on thinking clearly, looking ahead? And now, if you talk about a complex environment, it's no longer possible to protect it just with a firewall and an antivirus. You have cloud infrastructure to protect, you have a CASB solution there, you have web proxies, you have firewalls, you have IPS ID, you've got tons of components, right? And in most cases, these are from different manufacturers. You have legacy systems to protect and so on and so forth. And at times, we look at all these solutions in isolation, and none of them come cheap. And there is no organization, believe me, where there are no gap areas there, or anybody
so
can
that's
say.
the conventional, but the digitization.
But then how do you
innovation-
look
Yeah.
13 months or say 2 years in
Yeah.
advance?
Yeah.
So you have to, if you want to save cost,
Yeah.
if you want to ensure optimal or utilization of your, of your technology, then you have to look ahead. You have to get the larger picture, and you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
That's
So
my
Sujit, I think way this is happening. So you are now taxi aggregator application. Somebody hires taxi, but now you want to give more experience to the user. You want to use his time with you with so many different experimentation. You already had gone for the graph pay kind of thing. So there's so many possibilities that we work on digitization side, and that also makes you to capture so many of data of the end consumer, and we process that to, one is to improve the experience, improve our productivity, and more importantly, sell new thing to the customer. And that probably increases the footprint quite significantly and risk our exposure quite significantly as well, because for that we bring many players together to the platform that we have been building. So how do you see the entire coming forward because of digitization and innovation? Will there be many more revelation of the breaches that we'll see? And I'll come to Bhishma as well on this part.
Yeah, I mean, it is the sad state of industry today. I may sound pessimistic, but 9 out of 10 companies in the world are not prepared to face a breach, right? Let's just be honest, right? Even the Facebooks and Googles of the world with the best and the brightest security people have a tough time defending against security attacks. So it would be really pompous of anybody to say that I'm unhackable today, right? And nobody would say that in the right mind, right? And for especially for startups, again, goes back to you look at any new startup, right? Security personnel being hired is not amongst the top 100 employees that they hire, right? They're probably hired 2-3 years into the company where they have sustainable growth and they're actually raised at least a series A, B, C maybe. That's when they think about security. So security people come in very late in the game. That's the first point. The second point is business is moving at the speed of thought. Everything has to happen like yesterday. And then security is having a tough time just keeping up with that. Like to his point, we cannot even think 30 months ahead because we are just firefighting, dealing with problems of yesterday. And in which case, it becomes extremely hard for us to defend against a breach, right?
Yeah. So Bhishma, so like for example, as a India, we talk about $1 trillion digital economy. Does that create a kind of a goosebump in a company like yours that this is now big opportunity for us because digitization, innovation means a lot of working with data, so a lot of breaches possibility will be there. So probably there's a lot of possibility of growing the business. So does that really?
So I would not like to be sound very as very sadist to say that because there can be a lot of breaches, there is a lot of opportunity for insurance. But that's how it is. People are looking at insurance as a solution because we talk to a lot of technology firms, and when we ask them what is the one thing which is keeping them awake at night is as Manisha said, GDPR. So the kind of fines and penalties which can
Then
look at this. Look at a firm with $1 billion kind of a revenue, the fine can be $40 million, which can be huge. And to a company of size like Infosys, TCS, these can run into hundreds of millions of dollars. So yes, that's something which is really keeping them awake. But what GDPR has also done, and if we have to really look at how Suchit has just concluded is, security comes at a very later stage. But if you read the regulations, it says security is by design, and you should be investing in the security right from the day one. So that is something which I think we need in India as well. Though it may mean that there are over regulations and we are.
So as you have been there, we're only talking about the insurance business getting benefit. But the question to both of you is, how does security market play once some breach get revealed? So then people, probably the security market become very active and they try to use those instances. So how does it happen? Like
from an insurance perspective?
Not insurance, I'm talking about technology market.
Even that. My hunch is that the way, because I've been working in my previous avatar with insurance companies also, presenting to boards, is that if the insurance sector is not careful going forward, you talked about business opportunity, some breach happens. Now more insurance companies are offering, insurance cover. But if the insurance companies are not careful, the sector might lose a lot of money going forward. The reason being that not many insurance companies have factored the true risk, because finally premium is based on risk. In the US, if you are having a driving license and you have a car, and if you are accident prone, your premium goes up, right? In India, you lose your benefits, your concessions or whatever. but then your premium is based on the risk factor. And not many insurance companies, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, have truly calculated the risk correctly, particularly in
Cyber
the
insurance.
financial sector, where the insurance has suddenly become very popular. So one is the risk to the insurance sector. The second is the opportunities for security OEMs and firms,
Yeah.
where suddenly there is some breach which happens and there is a spurt in interest.
Yeah.
Yes, it drives up, some solutions, for a particular period of time.
Yeah. Suchit, your experience?
Yeah, I would agree. I get an influx bombardment in my LinkedIn as soon as some breach happens from various vendors, insurance companies, and whatnot. Every time that happens, and it's annoying at times, as a matter of fact, because many of these people who try to give you a risk score or anything, they really don't understand your business. They don't understand your threats or your threat model. I have, not to downplay anybody, but like I went through exercise with a firm for cyber insurance in my previous job, and the person that was doing the due diligence was only asking me, do you have this vendor solution? Do you have that vendor solution? And they were making a risk score based on, do you have a SIM solution or not? Instead of looking at how am I actually protecting against the risk, right? So which is a wrong flavor, right?
I don't
So
know.
I think we have some time, Nonish. Let's hear from the people as well, get their observations and questions. Yeah, please.
My question is to Bhishma, and actually it's just drawing upon the points that both of you made. What kind of metrics do you look at when you actually hand out insurance from a cybersecurity perspective? Because by going in for insurance, companies could be tempted to just do a compliance checklist and say that we are just, which is the point that you just made, right? So what kind of metrics do you really look at?
Briefly.
Yeah. So very good question. Cyber insurance is still very nascent in India. It's not that developed. But the good thing about it is it's still not a buyer's market. And when I say it's not a buyer's market, it will mean that there are limited insurers who have the capability to do this insurance. It's not a commoditized market as yet. And the specialized insurers are generally the ones which have got, like the AIGs and Allianz of the world, which have got capabilities of doing it globally. So what they do is they would not just give you cyber insurance because you have asked for it. They would like to do a proper due diligence. And one of that is look at your information security policy. Also look at your BCP, DRP plans. They would also conduct some kind of, tests. So, they have best friends arrangement with the companies like FireEye, Science, and, few others who can actually do a cyber security assessment on your firm. And basis those scores, they come up with, their underwriting terms and conditions. So it's not like, it is still not like how sir said, car insurance, you take your car and they will give you.
Yeah, so
It's not
so
like that.
deployment of the very specialized companies to do the assessment is definitely very important
Yes,
part of
that's
the
important.
insurance.
That's important.
Any other? Yes, sir.
So I've been just hearing the discussion around cyber risk insurance. I have a small questions like you told that you need to talk to the CISO initially to convince him. So exactly correct, but the CISO also should have certain kind of incentive. If CISO has a good posture, he could demonstrate a good posture, and CISO should get a discount in the premium. And that will be a clear business case to the, which we are struggling day in and day out to really tell that security is we are having a business case for security. So this would be a very clear business case. But my experience is, you can probably vouch for that. You don't have a model today, not in India, even globally. No actual model for the correlation between the risk and the premium. You just do it, fill up 10 things, but the premium doesn't change. Premium remains the same. So it's a disincentive to the CISOs, absolute disincentive to the CISOs. So I would like to know your reaction.
Maybe this is still a nascent stage. Actual science of the prevention is still not really yours.
So for actuarial science to develop, sir, you need a lot of data.
Yeah.
So like when you say that there are catastrophic models available, because a lot of catastrophes have happened in the world and there is a lot of data which is available, they have come up with the model. So, cyber will still take time because a lot of breaches happen, but we really do not know what the exact cost of those breaches, because half of them or 90% of them are not insured. Sir, but there I have just, so, but if if you see, you can't look at also in a very absolute term as well, because when you demonstrate that you have got best of the you know, systems and infrastructure in place, another company of same revenue size but a lesser infrastructure, you can clearly see the differentiation there. You are looking
Yeah.
only at maybe right now at your cost, but then if you see the industry as such, you'll definitely find that there will be differential costs when the company of same size but a you know, lesser infrastructure will be
Another
bearing.
market angle to this, because insurance is not still that a scalable business for the insurance companies, but more and more insurance adoption will happen, more and more will competing each other, and that competition itself will bring a lot of good thing out of what we have been explaining out of this one. At this point, it's very limited market. You have some question, yeah.
As part of the cybersecurity insurance, what is actually covered? Is it the loss we are talking about, or are we talking about how to patch to come to a recovery, or are we talking about how we respond?
So, you know, I generally give a 1 hour presentation to answer this question, but I very briefly, you know, touch upon this. So what we cover is, so basically cyber insurance is to cover any kind of data liability, which will mean that any liability coming on the firm because of the data which you have lost out. In case if you have lost out PIIs or PHIs or PCI or the corporate confidential information. Second, it also covers you for any kind of a business interruption you suffer because of a cyber attack and your systems are down. Third, it also covers you for regulatory fines, penalties, and also on the costs which you bear, like a forensics, like an audit cost, or maybe like notification costs which you have to bear following a data breach. So it's a combination of 4 or 5, you know,
So
clauses.
let's
I'll
have last
just-
two questions.
I'll just
but
ask a subsequent question to this one is,
can
when
we
you
give
feel-
the opportunity to other people? There are
We can have
a offline discussion, because there are two more hands which is coming in. But let's ask non-insurance question, because we have been discussing only on insurance part. Yeah.
Money makes the world go
it's,
round.
it's kind of a little bit of insurance related.
Okay.
But very quickly, you mentioned something about a lot of data for you to come up with some actuarial tables and what have you. One of the challenges in disclosure is that organizations don't want to talk about an issue. So if it's not in public, how would you get the information to begin with? And how do you go about it? Well, 90% or 99%, they don't talk about it. As opposed to health and all the other kind of stuff.
But just to answer, I think now compulsory reporting of breaches had been coming all across regulations. So I think there is no option available to be very kind of deceptive about the breaches that happen. I think that's
In the regulated
in
sector,
the regulatory. You have some question, right? There are two questions. We just try to cover the last two questions.
Anup here. So basically, I just want to, if you can throw some light on how the underwriting happens in the sense, you said that there's a data coming from FireEye, all those things are integrated to come up with the score value or something, right? You, as assessment again, it can be time consuming. So if you want, and checklist again, it's a failed option. So and 90% of the cyber insurance seems to be sold in US and where you are playing, right? So how is that the working model right now of coming out? Is there a data analytics play into it?
Let's have a
wherein
workshop
you
on
are-
insurance next, Nalkon.
No, yeah, definitely investment time investment in terms of time is required from the company also to do this. As I said, it's still not a buyer's market. It is still not easy. After doing all this, even then an insurance company can come back and say, we don't want to insure you because the score is not encouraging. So it's like more investment in terms of time is required from the company also, the CISO and the technology officer, and then how it's all
So
done.
one last question, which is non-insurance question. Yeah, please, non-insurance question.
Hi, my question is to Suchit. So having worked with so many startups of late, what do you think is the right strategy to reach out to startups if you want to pitch in security? Because economics definitely is always a major concern, right? I mean, and they come into picture pretty late.
Yeah.
So how do you pitch it to the startups to have security right from the beginning?
That is a very good question. So the right timing to engage with the startup again depends on the industry and depends on what their risks are. So if you're able to understand their risk and able to explain in either business terms what it would mean to the CEO that if he weren't, I mean, many people look at security, what if I don't do this? What happens to me, right? And based on that, they make a decision whether need to invest in security or not. So if you can answer that question succinctly, I think you'll be able to get across to the startups much faster.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this ends today's session because we have to go for another session. But I hope you enjoyed this session in terms of the breaches and the who gains and who lost out of this one. And primarily the cyber insurance wins here. So please join me to give big hand to my panel, Manish, Suchit, and Bhishma. And thank you all for joining here and asking those key questions as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.